Welcome to Process Makes Purpose, the podcast that explores innovative branding, digital marketing, and entrepreneurship. Our goal is to help you unlock your brand's full potential in today's digital landscape. Tune in to gain actionable knowledge and proven tactics to elevate your business.
Today's guest is Alexander Reese, a friend, collaborator, and sharp business mind we have the pleasure of knowing. We'll be diving into his story as the founder of Acrewell, a land acquisition company that helps property owners sell their land fast without the hassle of brokers, long timelines, or hidden fees. In this conversation, we dive into what it takes to simplify one of the most complex and least talked about transactions in real estate. We also talk about how Alex has expanded his brand's influence through thoughtful content creation on YouTube. From creating scalable systems that prioritize trust to creating client-first services that actually work, this is a real look at what modern, transparent land buying can look like. Whether you're curious about real estate, entrepreneurship, or building something that runs lean and delivers high value, this episode is full of insights. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about land. It's about empowering people with ownership. And that's what Acrewell was built for. So yeah, just to kind of roll right into it, I'm really excited. I've been really excited for this conversation, Alex, and Kyle, because Kyle and I have had these moments a few times here now where he kind of got brought into what we're doing when we started this, Mosaic Collective and kind of brought into content marketing services, podcasting, etc. And through that time, which has now it's been going on, we're going on a year and a half with you, Kyle. So it's been a lot of fun to re-engage folks from my past and past working relationships, bringing them into the fold, and then getting to meet Kyle. We even have some clients that are former colleagues. So it's always really, really fun to have these conversations where you guys get to meet each other. So Alex, this is Kyle. Kyle, Alex, formerly. Alex, it's what's fun is that you and one other former colleague hired me in the past, and that's kind of where things started. Working for a healthcare startup and corporate development, and then we kind of like split after some time and went off doing different things. Ultimately both found some sort of entrepreneurial path, which I think was really, really fun. And then once we did, I couldn't help but reach back out and say, "Hey man, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? Like, let's stay in touch," because that's the funnest part of being an entrepreneur. When you have other people around you that you can bounce stuff off of, see what you're trying, what's working for you, etc. So, love that we can get on the pod and talk about these things. So thank you so much for your willingness to join us here today.
Well, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. Kyle Dionisio, really glad to be on, and thanks for making the time.
Of course. So just to get right in, like I mentioned, you went on your own entrepreneurial path. You've kind of always been, as far as I know, in your experience, you've kind of always been in that startup universe, and that's kind of seems where you thrive. You're a creator. Tell us kind of how you pivoted towards starting your own journey. Was it just right place, right time, idea? What was the passion behind that?
Well, let me tell you what people told me when I shared with them that I was getting into the land business for the first time. I told people I was buying and selling land. And basically the reactions ranged from bewilderment and confusion to outright ridicule and like what? So land is this really interesting thing. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about it. And I'm thinking about what is relevant to your audience, a general audience. I'm going to throw some numbers out. We're just going to dive right in. I want to cut to the chase here, guys. Some numbers here. The United States of America is mostly undeveloped land. So 97% of the continental United States is vacant, open, rural.
Wow.
And it's unclear if it'll ever be developed. The frontier and the wilderness in America and North America is a big part of who we are. It's a big part of this country, what makes it so unique. But when you think about land in the abstract, people think about camping, people think about like a country house, or maybe they think about summer camp, fishing. So we all have these nature experiences, but land is the fundamental component of real estate. Real estate is the largest asset category in the United States. It's the largest contributor to household wealth. And the value of all real estate in America, their estimates vary, but it is at least $50 trillion. So it's a big market. And what's interesting about real estate is that people think about the built world that we live in, the structures that have to do with the cities, the city skyline, apartments, commercial real estate. But land as a component of real estate is about 25% of all real estate value. So you have a market in land alone, just vacant land, that is about 12.5 or $15 trillion in value. I'm going to throw some other stuff out at you because I want you guys to have a context and we can kind of figure what's interesting. Just to frame that number, $12.5 trillion, that is greater than the market cap of Apple, Amazon, Google, and Nvidia combined. And those stocks are giant companies that anybody can go onto a laptop, go to an E-Trade account. You can buy as much of those companies as you have the means to afford in a fraction of a second at the market price for free. There's no cost, really, not really. And no one dreams of it's like, hey, like in the future, maybe one day I'll own like 111 shares of Amazon or like I'll own a FANG index fund. I mean, like it's great and it's a big part of building wealth and tech's done real well in this bull market. But do people dream about owning land? Like people, the American dream is like owning a home and like maybe having a slice of the country.
That's
That's
so
what
true,
people
man.
dream about.
I was
And
watching a
so
podcast. Yeah.
go ahead, Dionisio.
Yeah, not to cut you off. I was just watching a podcast yesterday actually. It's the Pivot podcast. It's growing in popularity. A couple of ex NFL players, and they had Jelly Roll on, and the artist, and it was such an interesting conversation because he talked about that exact thing. He was saying like he had exposure to farmland because of his uncle or something, and just by exposure, like he always had in the back of his mind, like it's so peaceful. The land in the country is so peaceful, especially coming from the cities. And he was talking about how he bought a 600-acre farm and now wants to use it for the community and bringing people out to get exposure to it. But yeah, like literally, once people get a taste of the beautiful country, it is something that everybody's like, man,
Yeah.
I would love a slice of this.
And see, that's what the issue is. Everybody in the abstract is interested in investing in land or even a property that they might even just clear some trees, create a clearing, set up a cabin or a glamping site and cut a gravel driveway in and just have a spot to hang out and camp fish, maybe shoot some BB guns or something. But what's interesting is like there's no education. Like people don't know how to buy land. And it's actually the issues, it goes a little deeper than you would think because real estate agents don't understand land mostly. And those that do are few and far between. There's land agents and land brokers in some firms that are good. And I've learned a lot from a number of people that do that work and exclusively focus on land. But the way that buyers agents get paid and the price points for land being generally lower, it's a more kind of sluggish market. Buyers agents just don't get paid enough to help buyers with due diligence. They're not going to help you. They'll help you look at properties. They'll give you properties that fit your criteria, but like the cavalry's not coming. And if you make a mistake, like that could be $10, $20, $40,000 and you find out like a year or two later. So what's interesting is like the way that the business model works for agents, most agents just avoid land. And those that take land listings, they kind of like fake their way through it in a lot of cases because they have licensing and they're kind of like the authority because you have to get licensed to practice real estate. So they're not going to come out and tell you that they don't know the answer to something. I think the biggest problem people have is knowing what land is worth. Like a lot of appraisers struggle with it. We look at appraisal reports that are wrong all the time, that look at comps that are like halfway across the county that are like not even qualitatively similar properties. And I spent a lot of time on YouTube talking about this stuff. And so when you go to buy a house, you have all this support because your agent knows they're plugged into the market. They can show you a home. They're hardwired in with the local mortgage lenders, that they have an appraiser behind them. And so you have checkpoints where like you don't have to really know like how to comp houses. You just want to know what you're pre-approved for and what you can afford. And if there's an issue, you're just sitting in the back seat and then your agent and your lender, they're driving it. And then if there's a red flag, it's like, hey man, it didn't appraise at the number we thought, but we talked to the agent. We want to meet in the middle. It's like literally there's no analysis. It's like, do you like the neighborhood? Do you like the schools? Can you afford it? Period. With land, what's so funny is you just don't have that. Like a lot of it, lenders won't want to touch land. There's a lot of exceptions, but those lenders that will loan, it's typically lower loan to value. And the agents don't know how to price it. They don't know what it's worth. And so people struggle with it because they get into this process of buying land, but there's nowhere to start. They're like, what's next? Like, do I talk to an agent? But wait, they like ghosted me, or they're not helpful, or that was wrong. So what we're trying to do at Acrewell, and what I want to just share as far as context is like, really, I think land inspires people. People are inspired by nature, being outside. So our goal really as a marketplace business, we work with buyers and sellers, but big picture, I mean, we're just trying to connect people with the land that inspires them to do what they want. And it seems so simple. And there's a lot of things that we're working on to make it easier for buyers to find and acquire the land that they want.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool, man. I really like it. If we could, because we're going to get into I want to get into all the nuances of it. I want to get into the fact that there's no good content out there and kind of the need that you saw in that and that you're trying to meet. But to backtrack a little bit, I'm curious, like why land? Like why did you get interested in this in the first place?
So I always liked real estate, and I heard you could do land without leaving your house. Because when we were working together at the startup, I was working 60 hours a week in a corporate healthcare job. I was just working hard, and I didn't have time to go out and meet with contractors and tour properties. And so I just heard you could do land from home. I got into it. I think there's a part of me where I've always been interested in like kind of looking around the corner into things that other people are ignoring. People talk about location, 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 like it's this obvious thing in real estate, but people don't make the connection that the marketplace for location is land. Literally all property in America is defined by the four corners of the boundary line, and that's the land that the home or the building is situated and built on. So I think like there's always this thing with me where I'm really like looking into things that people are ignoring, or even like just things that are unconventional, quirky, mysterious, unproven, interesting. I've always just been so comfortable and so like at ease with myself, like looking around the corner at stuff. So I don't know what that is. I think it's just part of who I am.
Yeah. No, I love that. And so you've built a team around you to kind of get this done. And we can talk, maybe you can speak to a little bit of what exactly it is that Acrewell does specifically. Yeah, maybe we start there actually.
Yeah, well, I'll kind of talk to you about our business model, where it is now and kind of where it's moving. So really, our core business has been for the past several years kind of a flipping business where sellers, by the time they try to sell land, they realize it's a very illiquid, unpredictable market. It's not easy to sell. So a lot of what we've done in our bread and butter has been to market direct to owners and say, look, like selling land's hard. And so we make it easy. We'll buy your land for cash. We'll close in 4 to 6 weeks and pay all the closing costs and just take care of it. And so a lot of it is just direct to owner marketing, and then we're buying land off market and then flipping it on the MLS. A lot of stuff that we need to do in the middle. It's not like flipping a house where it's like carpet paint and you're doing some, rehab and renovation. A lot of the value of what we do is intangible. So things like surveys, permits, even research, like knowing what you can and can't do, knowing what the buyer is going to need to have, having the soil report done. There's thousands of dollars of intangible value add that puts a buyer in a position where, like, if they're interested in that property, they're able to squeeze the trigger and feel confident. So it's really been direct to seller, kind of a flipping model. But what happened is, and where I kind of started getting into the content stuff, and I know this was something we wanted to talk about, any small business owners got to figure out where's their next client coming from. And, there's warm network. You guys have done really well in your networks and friends of friends and business acquaintances. But when you're in the transactional real estate business, it's kind of feast or famine with the next deal. A lot of the clients you work with, the sellers, is one and done. So it's not always, it can be, it has been at times, but it's generally not repeat business. So you're really subjective to the sort of the whims of the marketplace in terms of ad cost, ad channels, a competitive market like real estate or, insurance. These are big marketplaces that have saturated investors and brokers and people that are sending mail to the same counties and owners. And that's always been true. And so it's not really like anything new there. But the thing is, like, you have to run a big ad budget. And, if the market slows down like we've seen, you're holding properties longer. And so with agents, they've really struggled too, because they get paid when the deal closes. And so when there's fewer transactions that close, I think the transaction volume has dropped like 60% since 2021 or something.
Oh, wow.
So, a lot of people have been squeezed by just the market. But those things come and go. My thought with the YouTube stuff is, look, like Nike doesn't send direct mail ads. Like Nike doesn't need a direct response ad campaign because they have brand. Companies that have brand, it sort of like removes the need for you to have this sort of treadmill and hamster wheel where you're just constantly money in, money out, and you spend 10 grand on mail, and it's like, yeah, like, hope that works out, Right. So everyone goes through that, and that's a part of business. But I was like, man, what would it look like for us to generate leads without advertising? And, the answer is brand. And if you want to build brand as a small business and you don't have the budget, you think about content. And so that's how I got into YouTube. And so I'll kind of leave it there. I know you asked about the team. I don't want to ignore that. If you want to go that way, or if you want to go into the content stuff, I'm happy to talk however you guys think is best.
Yeah. No, let's stay with your business model for a little bit more. Just curious to hear more, because in our conversation, and we've been talking for about a year now. We meet once every few months. A lot of our conversations had been around building a team and training and hiring, just kind of curious how you've approached that within this business model, especially considering what you just kind of described. And then I have a follow-up after that. So we'll start there.
Yeah, well, look, I have the best team in the world. I have a really great group. The full-time team, the full-time associates I have working with me, they're all in the Philippines. And so I have a couple specialized sort of skill sets across the team. I have an acquisitions rep who, she's real sharp in terms of, she works directly with sellers, people that are interested in selling. So she's trained with, acquisition script, where she's able to kind of qualify the lead on the phone right there, look up the property and kind of analyze comps without the owner knowing. And then also just to get that owner an offer right there on the call. And then do an e-sign on PandaDoc right on the spot.
Wow.
And then so she's done well on that. And then I have sort of a researcher who, she's real good at putting due diligence together. She chases down information from county offices, and she works, at Eastern time. She works a late shift, so she covers and extends to, close a business in the afternoon. So she's able to really get a hold of people and put research materials together. Then I have an analyst who's also sort of like an operations lead. So she's real good on process, real good on just learning stuff on the fly. Just a miscellaneous resource who has talent in a couple of different places. And she's helped, for example, to arrange some of the scripting and production notes for the land buyer course. And she's like real polished and knows our business very well. And then I have a full-time video editor, so I'm thankful for that. He was really maxed out on the course production, which we've been working on for 4 or 5 months. And you can kind of see, like, I was editing a lot of the YouTube stuff myself, which, in addition to taking time, like, I'm not that good at it. So we've got him back on the production of the YouTube content. So that's great, and that frees me up a ton. And I guess in terms of the team and where we're looking now, the flipping model is great, but you want to diversify because you're really like you're at the whim of like local market conditions, days on market, and you want a diversified strategy because like the big problem with land when your income is coming from buying and reselling land. The good news is like if you want to make money, you want to make a name, and you want to build a business, like it's a good strategy. There's no question about it. But when you have payroll and you're trying to build a team and grow, you're like the cash conversion cycle has been slow. And so you're holding these assets for longer. And so my thought has been, look, I just want another product to sell. I just want another product where it's a quicker sales cycle. It's more direct to consumer. It's more liquid. It's a differentiated price point. And, part of with YouTube, what led me down that path was like, I started making these videos because there's stuff that I had to learn in the process of doing the flipping business. I mean, we bought and sold like 140 tracts of land, and our numbers are really good. We've done a ton of business. It's like something I know how to do really well. But what I found out was like a lot of the stuff that I learned, like you can't find it online. It doesn't exist online. And I don't know why that is. It's very weird, but it's nonetheless true that you can't find like real in-depth land buyer education. And like when you go on like learn how to buy land, and you look at the courses that are available, you'll see like it's not very impressive. And that's not to throw shade. It's just I'm reporting the news here. The point being that, look, I think there's a land buyer course that, we're going to publish in the next couple of days. It's a long time coming. I think it's going to be really helpful for people. And the price point we're going to offer, we're going to underprice it deliberately just to get it in the hands of people, get some feedback, see where we can tweak it. So that's called the Land Purchase Navigator. And I think it's going to be an exciting product for people. And then also, on the part of the YouTube channel has kind of show me what people are looking for, where the topics of selling land are not as popular with online viewers as buying land. All the traffic's buying land. So we kind of look at this direct to seller versus kind of what buyers are looking for, what buyers need. So we've had a lot of requests for consulting services through people that watch the channel. And so I think that we're going to offer a consulting service as well for commercial developers or like, residential home builders that want like kind of a volume land acquisition pipeline. I think that's something that we're going to be doing in the next couple months.
I love that. That's awesome, man. Really, really, really cool. Before we jump into the brand conversation, because I know Kyle probably has a couple questions on all that stuff, but you mentioned earlier that the market has slowed with respect to land buying since 2021. And I just find that interesting now. I mean, obviously, like, with inflation, people less spending money. But from an investment perspective and kind of where the market is now and where people are speculating it's heading, physical assets tend to become more interesting for investors, right? Like the gold, the silver, land, other forms of real estate. So I wonder, and I'm curious to hear what you think, if that is going to kind of uptick in the next year plus, given the current market and economic dynamics.
Well, I think it will, but it's just what timeline you're talking about. What's funny, and I know you're a finance guy. Like I know you come from some of that background, and I studied economics at university. I know we went to the same school. We didn't overlap though. I think we might have overlapped. You were a freshman, I was a senior, but I don't know if I remember you from campus. But in any case, we're people that have studied economics, and I've since college probably learned most of what I know about economics, and a lot of what I think is interesting is how real estate drives market cycles. Real estate has become so financialized. The housing market used to be like, you look at all those graphs where it's like, 1955, like the average family, like it was like, two times median earnings, and now it's like 11 times whatever. The prices have risen on a relative basis compared to earnings and incomes. And a big part of why that is because there's a series of legislations in the 1990s that strengthened the mandate of Fannie and Freddie. Fannie and Freddie are basically quasi-government agencies that are also public companies. Not sure how that works in terms of the regulatory side, but in terms of assets, these are the first and fourth largest companies in the United States in terms of their balance sheet. So a lot of the United States government approach to housing since the last 30 years has been focused on how do we make it easier for people to qualify for loans, even if they're not actually qualified? And how do we make it less risky for banks to originate risky mortgages to facilitate that? And that's honestly what this whole subprime thing has been. And since the emphasis on subprime lending, it's a dirty word now, but it was very much and still remains a central theme in government housing policy. They want people to get these mortgages. And it's a double-edged sword, as we've seen. But, what's happened now that banks have really stopped looking at houses as dwellings, they're now looking at them as fundamentally financial assets, and that's what they are. When the real estate market starts rising after a crash like we saw from 2007 to 2011, when the housing market starts to rise, it rises based on the expansion of credit through the banks. When banks lend, more money comes into the system. When money comes in, that inflation hits financial assets first, and so housing prices rise. And so the expansion in housing is self-reinforcing. And that's what you've seen. And that's why the real estate market moves slowly and intentionally, where you see these big jagged movements in stocks that are very different. So in other words, what happens when you have an expansion in housing is it's self-reinforcing, and it goes for many years. And this is what we've seen. And as it reinforces itself, home equity rises, and that means that individual families have more collateral, they have more equity, so they're more bankable. And so it just keeps going and until it doesn't. And so basically when housing gets stretched at the top, people and businesses are leveraged, and the housing market starts to get weak, and people on net balance start to be sellers, not buyers, and prices start to fall. It has momentum on the other side too. And so housing prices move very slowly. Even if they were starting to fall today, we wouldn't know for sure for 6 months because you'd have to wait for the trailing data. So it's very slow. But what's important to understand is like what housing prices are doing nationally, because housing is about, and real estate's about half of bank lending. And lending is how banks make money. It's where their cash flow comes from. And so the mortgage thing is a massive driver of the stock market. It's a massive driver of the market cycle, market conditions, market sentiment. So as long as housing prices remain high, it's very hard for the stock market to really sell off, because there's just going to be, there's a roof up over the lending economy in ways that maintain the liquidity. But when the prices start going in reverse and housing starts to really look weak and start selling off, the banking system really can't function normally, because they're issuing mortgages into a falling market. they're not set up for it. The value of the collateral they have on the existing mortgage portfolio declines, which means that the mortgages that they have are more risky, which means the book value is lower. So the banks can't get credit, and so that's where you get the government bailouts and all that stuff that we see like every 20 years or so. So is something like that coming? Yeah. Is that going to happen tomorrow? No, I don't think so. And I think when it happens, like you'll see it in the stock market because it's very obvious. But when you look at the weakness in the stock market, it could be 2, 3, 4 years from now. But when you see that, you're probably going to look at the real estate housing market data and see that the housing market had been falling for 2 years prior. So in other words, that the housing prices, they're probably not going to fall because they're high. Because they're high, people don't need to sell because they have home equity. And so you just want to see the edges start to fray. You want to see sellers have more intent, more distress, more foreclosures. There's just no foreclosures. There's barely any unemployment. Even with the Q1 GDPs looking pretty weak, pretty bad, but it just takes a lot to really slow the housing market down to where the sell-off is more cyclical. So we haven't seen that yet. I think it's just sluggish, sideways market. There's a lot of air under these numbers, but there's a lot of momentum behind them too. So I think that, I would look for a peak in the housing market probably in the next 12 to 24 months. And then when it starts to decline, probably 3, 4 years. I don't think it's going to be 2007, but history is very clear on this.
It does. So you talked a lot about the housing market with that. I'm curious, before we kind of jump into some YouTube stuff, are there parallels between the housing market and land as well, or do they kind of operate a little bit differently within the market?
Well, they're sort of aspects of the same market in a sense, because when you look at land from a zoning standpoint, the vast majority of land in America is basically zoned residential. Now, it could be residential, it could be a rural zoning, it could be agricultural zoning, it could be a kind of a blend of those different zoning codes. They kind of have hybrids. But anything agricultural is residential. It's just low density residential. And you could have light commercial, you could have kind of like agricultural, any farming type of land uses would be appropriate for that depending on where you are. So most land is residential land. So the highest and best use and what is going to make an average piece of land the most valuable on the market is going to be defined by its residential development potential. So even if it's a vacant land with a bunch of trees by the road, it's like, okay, well, but then if you look at what it would look like on the market if you wanted to sell that piece of land and you figured who's the buyer, what would they pay? If you're in the country, you want to know if you can install a septic system, because if you can't, that means you can't build a home. And if you can't build a home, then, you probably lose 60, 70, 80% of the market value. So they're also correlated because big home builders have a demand for buildable land. And then even just families that have like a home equity line of credit, they have liquidity to buy land, or they can get construction loans to buy land. So they're aspects of the same market. They function a little bit independently, and land prices kind of lag a little bit, and they're more volatile in the cycle. So they fall harder at the bottom, and they go higher at the top on a relative basis than housing. And it's like the tail, the dog is the housing market and the tail is the land market. The tail wags a little bit more widely and a little bit behind the housing market, but they're connected.
Well, so on that, I mean, there's no doubt you're a subject matter expert. So I think it makes sense that you went to YouTube, but as a platform to display that and show that to your customers. But I am kind of curious your journey as you were thinking about brand, like why did you kind of land with YouTube as the focus over like a Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram? I'm just curious how you got to that decision yourself.
Well, they're all important. They're all critical. And, you want to get good at every platform, be on every platform. And part of it's demographic. It's like, where's your audience hanging out? If I was a local brick and mortar business, Facebook would be more important. If I was like, fashion or lifestyle branding, maybe Instagram would be more important. If I was like gaming or youth, maybe TikTok. And this is just sort of like off the cuff. I don't know if that's actually the right, you guys would know more than me, but YouTube is the most important media platform on the planet today. And it's only getting more important. It's the value of YouTube, it like Google tries to hide it because it's like too good basically. It's basically the jewel in the crown of Google's portfolio. It is, last I checked, and I'd have to double check this, but when I saw it before, the approximate market value, market cap of YouTube, I think it's like more than like TikTok and Meta. Like it's
I believe it.
actually crazy. And part of what I've heard from other creators that have been on different platforms is with YouTube, it's you get all the views on TikTok and Instagram. You go on YouTube and like what felt like a million views on TikTok, and you go over and it's like, oh, I only got 20,000 views on YouTube. And then you look at your bank account and it's like, oh, like it's a different view, So
Right.
it's just it's a higher intent audience. You have to sell the attention at every level, including title, thumbnail, topic, first 3 seconds, first 30 seconds. So, and it's just a bigger media channel. Like it's like how people are able to, it's like the new TV. And Mr. Beast
Yeah.
in an interview said that, 10 years from now, YouTube's going to be more important than TV ever was. I think that is possible. So I just figured, look, they're all important. I want to be on all of them, but like which one's the most important to get good at first? I think for me, the answer was YouTube. And I know that varies by business. It's not a universal thing, but I just thought that like horizontal video, long form presentation, interesting kind of packaging of the idea, good like sort of hook. It plays to my strengths. Like I'm not gonna be like nobody like looks at my YouTube because like I'm like a fashion influencer. It's like, oh, like, look at him. He was like seen in Monaco, like on a boat. It's like, that was super cool. Like he said, like, what's he got going? It's like, no, it's like I have ideas and like some of them take a few minutes to explain, as you I'm sure learned in this interview. And so I think YouTube's the format.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm curious, like you kind of touch on some of the things that you focus on, whether that be title, thumbnail, first 30 seconds, hooks, all those type of things.
Yeah.
I'm curious with your experience, what have been some of the things you've noticed that you've adapted over time from? I'm sure, like, I mean, coming from somebody that works in the creative field, I know if I look at stuff from a year ago, I'm like, I would do that completely different. I'm curious if you were to look at some of your first videos, what would you say you could have done better then to somebody that's maybe starting out and thinking about doing YouTube now? Like, what would be things that they should focus on?
So yes, focus on first few videos. Well, I want to just make a comment, then I'll answer your question. Basically, you had touched on like kind of what'd you learn, and then how would you advise someone who's getting started. So to kind of address that with a comment I saw on Reddit, I was looking at like one of these YouTuber threads of like, it's like, hey, like when am I going to get viewed? Like all these like real rookie like threads. And then there's like wise, older, more experienced people that are like, yo, here's how it is. Like, so I learned a lot on Reddit. And at one point there was a person that was like, yeah, like, I built like multiple channels with like 50,000 subscribers each. Like, and then the next sentence, he's like basically like being a creator on YouTube is kind of like being in an abusive relationship. And I was like, oh man, like, and it's like anyone that creates on YouTube knows exactly what he's talking about. And it's like not, you don't want to make light of it too much, but it's the analogy, it just hits because every time you post a video, you think it's your best video yet. And the more you think that, the more it's going to flop at the beginning. Because
That's
look,
pretty crazy.
I've had videos hit I've had a couple that, I mean, dude, we have a small channel. I mean, we're at like, it's bigger than it was. It's maybe 2,100, 2,200 subscribers today. But and we've had a couple videos really pop. And the one that really popped, it's like 150,000 views. It like had, it's like the same as other videos. It's like a slightly better title. Like,
Yeah.
and
That's
that's
crazy.
it. Like literally. And every time, when you post a video, at the beginning, you think like, oh, what are my friends going to think? What are my colleagues at work going to think? What's like, if I only have like 11 views, like, should I keep doing this? Like the best advice I can give someone who's starting is like, no one gives a crap about your lame video, period. And that's it. Like, and I'm talking to myself very much because the knowledge that that's true is empowering. Your friends and closest family members, that even after they know you're on YouTube, they won't watch any of your videos or take any interest in your videos at all unless it's like a native, like the topic of the channel is a native interest of theirs. If it's like 2 degrees outside their like strike zone, they'll ignore it forever and they won't care. And they just want to know that like, oh, you're having fun, you're doing whatever. So it's getting out of this transactional thing where, and in general, in business in general, just because you lose doesn't mean you're a loser. Just because you win doesn't make you a winner. And like, just because your video flopped doesn't mean it was bad. So I think that where people really have momentum is understanding that generally no one gives a crap about your lame video, number one. Number two, where you win in that framing is to understand that if you think it's good, other people will too. And ultimately, like if you keep focusing on the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one, and you have a process for producing and uploading videos, you just have to follow what you think is cool because you will find an audience. And if you're good and you have like certain strengths like public speaking, or if you have access to like, if you live on a farm and you have outdoor scenery, or like you have lifestyle imagery because you travel a lot, and you can put videos together around things that are differentiated strengths, you're going to have one that really pops and that's going to grow your channel. And then the one after that you think is better and no one's going to watch it. And because you can't control it. You can just control, right. Is this fun for me? Is this real to me? And do I think it's good? So the funny thing is when I go back to the early videos I did, like, and my team and I talk about this, the first video I got that had several thousand views in the first couple of days, the production value was so bad that like I didn't have a microphone. I was filming outside. It was like a selfie shaking camera video, but like not a good one, like bad. And then there was like, I was in a park and there was like construction noises, like brr, and I was like trying to like talk over it. I was like, yeah, anyway, so it's like flood zones. Flood zones are, it's like, and the title was like a little different. It was basically like, I bought 89 tracts of land in North Carolina and here's what I learned. And it was like a weird, deliberately awkward selfie of like a guy with a t-shirt. And it just got like 3,000 views in like a week. And it was like, and it was such a bad production value that I had an email, like I didn't even give my email out in the video or anything. People like found me and there was a guy who was like, he emailed me, he was like, hey man, like I love the channel. The videos are good and stuff, but like, dude, like the camera was so shaky, I like can't watch. It like makes me seasick, literally. And so, and like, it's funny because my team and I, when we go back, like that video still draws traffic. And like I look at that video today with my team and like, we're just like, that was so good. Like it was like such a good video. And like, yeah. Because like we know, it's like if you know, you know. So
right.
Dude, all my videos are bad. All of them are good. It depends how you look at it. Like when Cody Sanchez talks about land, she draws 100,000 in the first 24 hours. When I talk about land, if I get 100 in the first day, I'm like, oh, maybe this will, like there's no comparison to the big creators, but there shouldn't be because you just need volume. You need reps. And frequency is going to give you the quality over time. But until you have the objective quality in your videos, you just have to have the subjective quality that you think it's good. And that's how you grow.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you touched on a lot of I think you touched on a lot of things that we also preface with our clients when they're starting out with a podcast
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
Where I always tell them was like for the first 3 or 4 months, you're gonna see what is likely a bump in your metrics, and that's gonna be your friends and family that are supporting you and are willing to watch the first 3 or 4 videos.
Exactly.
I'm like, and it's not that they don't love you, it's just that there's going to be a drop off as they stop watching your videos. And I was like, and then maybe around like month 9 or 10, we'll start to get a better idea as to like where your baseline is going to be set to where we'll start to grow from there. But it's a freeing thing in my mind when you know that, because then like when it happens, you're not questioning like what did I do wrong? Like why don't people like my stuff anymore? It's like, well, you have people that love you behind you. They wanted to watch your first few videos, and then you're just making stuff that they're not interested in. They still love
That's it.
you, but they just don't want to learn about IT technology, for example, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but there are people that will, and they will find you if you continue to make good content for that specific audience. And I think there's a lot of really good takeaways that you had within that. That being one of them that kind of sparked my interest as to like what we talk about with our clients as well. Um, the other thing too, I think that was interesting that you touched on is the concept of that video that popped off for you. That was one that you're like, why did this even pop off? Camera's shaky, audio's bad. Well, it has to do with the level of or the content quality, what was in the video. And I think that's such a thing that people don't focus enough on, especially if you're somebody that's like, well, I'm going to get this camera, I'm going to get this microphone. And it's like, well, if you're not also spending a lot of time developing what your content will be about, it doesn't matter what your camera and microphone are. You can't pay
Correct.
someone to pay attention to a bad video for very long.
And the thing is, the production quality is less important at the beginning. It's very important at every level, but if you had to choose, it's like make a good video, bad production quality, or bad video, good production quality. There's no comparison. You just have to enter, you have to capture attention, convert attention, and then keep them engaged and tell a story and figure out how you do that. And look, if you haven't got good enough to do that where you're getting any kind of response from the audience, that you should focus on that before buying an expensive camera. Not that the camera's not valuable, it is. I need to actually make those investments. But the point is like cart before the horse.
Right. Yeah, I mean, one of the channels that I watch it's this older gentleman who sits in a cabin with probably a camera from 2012 and just tells like life stories and like things like just wisdom type of videos, and he just sits there for like 3 or 4 minutes, gives you his little tidbits, and then it's like no production quality, no good audio, anything like that, but he's still landing 500,000 views on his videos, which is just crazy. And like to me, that's proof of if you have a good enough message over time and you do that consistently, results will come. It's just there has to be a patience game, and kind of what you talked about with YouTube of, sometimes you think you crush that video and then it doesn't land, and then sometimes you're like, that was an okay video and that one for whatever reason goes really well. And it's just kind of the right mix of the right things will end up promoting those videos, and sometimes it's a little bit less predictable than you would like it to be.
Yeah, no, Kyle, I appreciate that. I agree with you. And I'd like your opinion on this because what's interesting on YouTube, and I've found we've have 51 videos on our channel. This is nothing. This we haven't even started. But the thing is like what's interesting about YouTube in particular is that you realize that what makes a video good are things you don't notice at the beginning. Title, thumbnail, first 3 seconds, and sometimes even the natural environment of the video. The reason I was doing outdoor walking videos is because like when people see a moving background, they're just going to pay more attention. Mm-hmm. When it's a background like my office, it's like weird chipped paint. It's like, okay, but it's not as compelling. There's not as much going on.
Sure.
Even little cues in the environment that capture interest for fleeting moments are going to help maintain a better retention curve. And then those things are going to feed your distribution. So some of the things that make a video good, like the guy that you talked about in his cabin with, a big channel, it's like title thumbnail is a lot of it, most of it. And And then like title, thumbnail, and then the first 3 seconds when you hover on your cursor, you may see a video like that. You click it and the guy's like in his chair and he like doesn't say anything for the first few seconds, but it's like, no, that was good. Like what
Right.
it's like literally like you have to see it. What makes it good is that it's interesting and it pulls you in. So sometimes you want to start really fast with a lot of energy and like hands and stuff and cuts and all this like retention based editing can help. But like sometimes like you just being like quiet and not saying anything and then starting, maybe there's videos and there's certain channels where that helps. So the thing that makes it good is the audience attention, in my opinion. And it gets into things where like, obviously it's not just top line views because it's about what your business is, who your audience is. Because you can have some like sensational man on the street video where it goes viral, but then the crowd that you draw is irrelevant and doesn't drive business. So that's where you see the CPMs and you see basically what advertisers are paying based on the demographics of your video audience. So you want, I think, both skills. You want the ability to draw a crowd as relevant as possible. And then there's videos where big creators have big channels and small channels where it's like, dude, these small channels, they get a couple thousand views of video, and this is where the business is coming from because it's intent and it's segmentation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I've seen a little bit about and don't have as much experience with is the secondary channel. I know some people do that. I don't have personal anecdotal experience. I've seen some people it works out well. I know for one thing, it's another way you can sell affiliate marketing. So if that's a big thing that you're doing through sponsorships and affiliates, like that can be a good secondary way for you to do that uh, without for lack of a better word, exploiting the main audience that you have there. You don't have to do too many advertisements within the main audience. You can have your smaller audience that there's a lot of just, you're doing like little, either as a shorts channel, like a lot of people will do that for shorts, separating that from their main long form content, or they'll segment out the audience into interest groups. Like, for example, one that's popular is like Red Bull. Like that Red Bull has how many different channels for all the different types of extreme sports they have, but then they also have their main channel, which features all of them. So, but then there's also ones, Mr. Beast being obviously a marquee example in almost every facet for YouTube for a reason. He has how many different channels, and you've probably seen plenty of videos of how he talks about how he's profitable and like these different ones, even like just the Spanish, he just does like a Spanish dub channel where he just gets it translated, and that's making millions of dollars for him as well, just because he went through a translator, gets it translated, dubs it, and it's crazy. It's crazy the amount of the creativity with that too. But I think that's because of your point of YouTube is becoming a more important medium than even TV was at one point. And I think we're heading in that direction. And like, for example, my dad, he watches these podcasts sometimes, but he watches it on YouTube, right? And he watches YouTube pretty frequently as well. So it's not, a lot of people think it's just the younger generations on YouTube of like Gen Z, millennials, but like it spans all generations at this point, and it's becoming like a lot of things with social media, it ages up. So it starts with like TikTok starts at the youngest generation and ages up. And so I think that's happening to YouTube at scale, and also not just in the United States, but they have a global audience that they're able to tap into. And then the searchability features of YouTube is unmatched as far as social media. And I think that's where Acrewell especially is primed, where if you have evergreen content that's easily searchable content on YouTube, that's another benefit to you guys, where that's not really searchable on Facebook and Instagram. If you made a video, 6 months ago, a year ago, what's the odds somebody's going to actually find that? Versus YouTube, they're looking for a specific thing. You have a video addressing that topic. There's a lot more organic traffic that can be found from 2 years ago content that you've created.
And not just YouTube search, Google search.
Right.
And Gemini and the LLMs, the chatbots. Because that's the thing with YouTube. It's more open to the internet. And this is part of the advantage that I started talking about. That's part of why I chose it. Instagram's great, and you can get like video previews, but then sometimes there's like a login barrier. And then like it's deliberately a poor user experience if you're not logged in because they want you to create an account. With YouTube, it's basically open to the internet in a way that others are not. But you mentioned something that reminded me of Gary Vaynerchuk. Never gets tired of talking about the interest graph and social media and how it's changed and how it's really interest media now. Used to be almost like email marketing where you would have a list of people. It's like, hey, like join my list, and then you would have a network of people that would see any message or any post that you published. But now the creative, the content itself generates its own reach and it generates its own audience. And the niche that you are interested in is an interest that's shared by tens of thousands of people. And what's fascinating is that the small business opportunity that you guys help your clients with in terms of the content piece, podcasting, YouTube, and then the social media platforms, LinkedIn video, obviously. Dionisio, I see you on LinkedIn video. You're doing a great job there, by the way. Seriously, like that is a huge channel that is really greenfield right now. I think everybody sees that. But it's the whole thing. It's like you can't be niche. You can't be too niche. It's the niche that creates the audience that is deliberately interested in that topic. And the importance of content and social media is we're in the early innings of this. We think YouTube is saturated, but like roll the clock forward 10 years and talk to me then. This is the moment. And content and social media is the new Madison Avenue. Advertising is massively important, but it's getting to the point where like organic content is more important even than advertising at this point because it goes to brand. And it's what draws the right crowd for your business. It's what drives business. And if you can get good at that skill, you don't need money. You don't need money. You don't need a budget. You don't even need a microphone. All you need is an interest and a skill set. And you need a smartphone you can turn around and just do a selfie video take. If you can package that right, that will drive business. That will drive interest. That will drive an audience that in the future gives you the ability to negotiate better contracts or to have like a consulting arrangement, brand deal. And there's no cost really other than your time. And so in that way, it's a global reach. It's a $0 budget. It's all interest and skill and execution driven, where your skill is the variable. There's no barrier to entry really. And so in that way, it's becoming more important than advertising, and it's the new Madison Avenue. And it's only getting more important with time.
And I think you tapped in. And D, sorry, I don't know if there's a little bit of a delay. You can go ahead.
I lost my train of thought, so go ahead.
So I think you tapped in a couple of times. You've brought up audience, and that's something that we also find very important with this process of like when we're helping people develop their podcast to be thinking about. And one of those things that we do that's kind of a fun exercise is we create like a persona for that person, right? So when we name the persona, we say like, it's the person Sarah, she's 35, she's in this position, she has these type of interests, and like every piece of content you should put out shouldn't be like, does Kyle like it? It should be, does Sarah like it? Like that should be the answer that you're trying to pursue within that content, to make sure that it helps that person, because ultimately if you're able to help that person, you can gain the trust of that person, and then hopefully you are top of mind. Kind of what you're talking about here with the content marketing, a lot of that is you're becoming top of mind in your industry. And for people that are interested in that, is like when they're thinking, the ideal is, right, if somebody's looking at land, whether to buy or sell in any capacity, Acrewell becomes the mind, and like Alex is the person they're thinking of at Acrewell they need to talk to about that positioning. And I think that's an important thing to consider is, and I think that's a big thing with the success, right? Is if your value is for that individual every time. And like you said, you also have to like your content too, or else you're probably not going to want to continue to make it when nobody's watching it in the beginning. And one thing you touched on as well prior is, you're at, would you say video about 50, like about 50 videos now, which is,
I think 51. Yeah. Right around there.
yeah, which is about when people start to see the curve. From my understanding is like around that 50th video is when you start to see YouTube really, the algorithm really knows who you are at that point. If you've consistently posted to that same audience, that same content, now it knows like every time you're posting, it's like that Sarah will like it because she's liked the other videos that you've posted, and people like Sarah will like it because she's been watching it. And the other thing that I'm curious to hear your thoughts on is, as far as content is concerned, that you have the headline and the title, those things that you're hooking people on to begin with. Like the big thing is just trying to get people to click is the first thing. But then the other thing to consider too is a lot of people in, especially like traditional marketing, they have they're thinking more so, I'm competing against my competitors, which I think is an incorrect theory for social media, because you're competing against Mr. Beast. You're competing against the best influencers in the world when it comes to your titling, your thumbnail, your marketing stuff, because everybody's going for your attention, right? Everybody wants your attention, including we're making a podcast that's vying for attention. So we're not just competing with other marketing podcasts. We're competing, which we are competing with them, but we're also competing against a broad market of really good people that are experts in it. And I'm just curious to hear your thoughts as you've kind of worked on developing thumbnails and headlines. Do you look to other creators within the industry to see like where trends are going? Like, are you looking at different people, or you kind of been learning that on your own, or what's been your process in developing titles
Yeah,
and
it's a great
thumbnails?
question. I mean, there's a lot of stuff right there. So I definitely watch a lot of content, and I see what's in my browse, my homepage, and there's certain things where it's like, oh, that's good. I see why that video is getting traffic, and so I click it, and I learn a lot about just new creators, people that are, that have big channels with very few videos that draw 20, 40, 60, 80,000 views, and you try to study and reverse engineer why that is. I've watched a lot of Mr. Beast stuff. I think that his skill, it comes with a lot of time and dedication and focus and frankly like inborn talent for certain things. And there's some land. I've learned a lot in just some land channels. I mean, there's a lot of creators that focus on content for land investors, so how to like start a land investing business, and that's really where I've differentiated out of that, because I talk about land investing, but I think that there's just a bigger, more open, more differentiated opportunity for just the average everyday person that wants to buy land. I think that's actually what the internet's missing right now. So, Land Academy does great stuff for land investing. There's two brothers that have a really good channel that I watch sometimes called Land Investing Online. They're pretty good. So they've been around a couple years. Land Academy going back further, I've learned a lot from Land Academy in particular. So there's good creators in land investing. In terms of buying and selling land, there's a guy named Wayne Turner who he just does a sort of walking selfie video content. I think he runs a brokerage, a residential brokerage in Louisiana, and you see very low production value, good mic, and just kind of walking around with a tight script. And you see what he does in terms of his numbers with a very low production budget. So I think he's a guy that I've been looking at, trying to not model my channel after by any means, but like seeing in this niche who some of the big players are. Christina Smallhorn is another real estate personality that's done some land content. She has a pretty big channel. I've watched some of her older stuff that was more land focused, and now she's kind of more into like housing market, manufactured homes, and then like HOAs and some like local stories. And she's done really well with her channel. She's an agent as well. So there's people like that. And then I just try to look, and Cody Sanchez, I think, does a great job. She's had a couple land videos. That's not her area, but she's had some really cool, innovative video ideas that relate to buying land and businesses that involve land.
I watched one yesterday.
Did you? Yeah, she just posted one. And I mean, dude, I grew up on I say grew up, I mean, the last 10, 15 years in my 20s into my 30s, I grew up on Grant Cardone, like all the sales training content, all the marketing that he does, Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean, Gary and Grant are some of the people I've learned most from in terms of not even content, just business and marketing and like just sales, which is how I started my career. So these are a short list of names. I'm sure there's some that I'd remember later. It's like, oh, I should have said that too. But there's so many great creators and voices.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I one of the things that I heard you mention earlier, and then we can kind of get off the topic, but that I thought was really impactful, and I think is a majority of the meat and kind of what you were saying, But regard to the barrier to entry being low from a monetary perspective, it's just a matter of like going out and doing it and talking about something that you're interested in, right? Like I think that really speaks to brand and brand authenticity and through you as a unique individual. And this is something that my wife Sienna talks about. She just recently had a talk in Florida where she talked about it to professional speakers. And the message is really stop trying to be others that are doing something similar and be you. Be who you are and figure out what the uniqueness is in you and your curiosity that allows you to make content that is original to you. And that's what you said earlier that I just kept bringing true in my head. And it also is exactly what we started the conversation off with when you talked about your curiosity around like different angles and what people aren't really thinking about. Um, that's the type of thinking that's unique to you as a person that I think when pulled through via brand is what makes you able to get into those really niche environments and have success and differentiate really well. So kudos to that, man. Like I think you being able to pull your personality through into your business and brand is such a challenge for people. But I think that the folks that are able to do that and do that well are the ones that differentiate the best. So just wanted to say that because that was on my mind earlier, but yeah, just wanted to mention it.
Yeah, thank you. Authenticity is the currency. I mean, you know, and I've certainly gotten better at it. If you look at some of the early videos, it wasn't that I was putting on a persona. It's like the hard part is finding your voice in front of the camera and like being relaxed in like kind of in your presentation, in your voice, in the way that you present your ideas so you can be present and kind of react to the interview or kind of react to the idea and like phrase it in the right way. So those are things that just come with time. But the bottom line is what you said, which is you cannot be anyone but yourself because the lack of authenticity of trying to be someone else repels the audience. And the authenticity and vulnerability of, hey, like here I am, like I think this is cool and like
Right.
maybe you guys will too, that draws a crowd. That vulnerability of being real and not knowing if it's going to work is everything. So that's really what people are looking for. And the small business opportunity of just going through your business. If you have a flower shop and just doing selfie videos or having a tripod and talking about the snake plant in the flower shop and how it's really good with this window because the light comes in and it doesn't need much light but it's an air purifier. I mean, the content that any business that has any niche sort of business model or office space or personalities of people around the office. I mean, the opportunity to just to hit record on the iPhone and create really engaging content that drives brand and drives business, I think is very underrated.
I have one kind of quick question that I'm curious to hear your thoughts on. I know we're a little long on time here, but I am just curious from where you sit now versus like where you started. Would you recommend that people in 2025 start with short form or long form video
Long
content?
form.
Long form? Why is
Yeah.
that?
Watch time.
Watch time?
Yeah. Because what you want, if you're selling a service or if you have a business, you're like a marketing agency or a consulting service, what you want is to accelerate trust through that funnel, through your content. Alex Hormozy has an unbelievable video. The guy name I forgot to mention earlier, where what he talks about in his business, there's a great video of like basically all the social media channels and which ones drive business for his company, and he rates them based on their utility for driving revenue. And what's interesting is he shows the different platforms, how many viewers are on each one, then the average watch time per view. And then he shows how many of the viewers as a percentage per video hit the website. And then he even sees the engagement of that traffic by channel on his website. And he's like, the ones that drive business are YouTube and Instagram for his thing. And he's like, TikTok, I can tell when people know me from TikTok because they're like, oh, dude, you're that guy. Like, I know you, man. I know you. But it's like on YouTube, it's like, dude, that video where you broke down all the stuff, where you were going through all the channels, and you have like 2 million followers on TikTok, but then the web traffic doesn't convert. It's so fascinating because I saw the same thing. And like, it's really when you have a sort of a sales process where you're trying to move people through a funnel of ideas, where it's like, this is the problem, you're aware of the problem. Now you're aware there are solutions, but here's the problem with those solutions. And then here's what we do. And it might not make sense, but then if it does, we can talk. Like that process, it's just a watch time thing. You want people to go deep on your content and spend time on your content. And you can see it. I can see it on YouTube. I can see it like skipping a stone across a lake. You can honestly see the view come in and then hit the end screen and then watch the next one and then channel pages. You can literally see the watch time journeys if you know where to look.
That's cool.
So I think for a lot of people, I'd recommend YouTube, but that's confirmation bias because that's what I'm doing. My sister's done great with Instagram and TikTok. She's done nothing on YouTube, and she has not missed anything out on that. So I think these are the pros and cons. This is how I think about it.
What's going to be different about your course content compared to your YouTube content?
Well, there's a lot of stuff that for people that want to go deep and want playbooks and want structure and really want to get educated, there's certain stuff that you really can't do on YouTube because you have to always entertain first and inform second. And the course I'm building is very entertaining, but some of it is like, here's how to like go on an online mapping system, and here's how the layers work. Here's how to analyze the environmental features of land, where it's like literally a 12-minute video that's cut up and produced. And it's like, here's like how we do this. Like, here's everything that we know on this topic that you need to know. And so it doesn't map to like a broad market retention graph on a YouTube video. And it's more detailed. And so it's structured too, because what we're going to have is, in addition to the topics, we're going to have the structure of the topics, what you need to know and the foundations and building it up. But then you're going to have the framework. You'll have the playbook. We have like a tracker that's built where you can put all the properties that you're making offers on, how to know the value of the property before you make the offer, the psychology of the offer, how to negotiate with agents. And then we have like a big due diligence tracker, like everything you need to know, where to get the data, what county office officials have it. And it's just all this stuff of like, a lot of stuff on the YouTube content is people leave these comments. Hey, no one makes videos like these. No one talks about land like this. And so sometimes what we spend time doing is saying, look, here's the conventional wisdom that you will be told. Here's why it's wrong. And here's why, if you follow it, you're going to make mistakes. And here's how you know that's wrong. Where a lot of it is just reverse programming the bad information that they're likely to have seen elsewhere, and then proving out the system that actually works and then delivering it.
That's great. So I think you've talked about your course a little bit, but I'm curious, that I think this is a good time for you to plug anything else that you would want to, but I think that'll be great to see that course come out, and we'll be happy to include that in our show notes as well for people to get a link there. But where else can people find you? Where can they interact with you? And how can they learn more about either buying or selling land from your courses or your channel, your website, etc.?
Sure thing. Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So find us at acrewell.com. That's ACREWELL.com. That's the website. So you're going to see general information about the company. That's where we're going to put the information for the course. That'll be available later this week. I think for the average person that's watching this, they're probably watching it on YouTube. They may be listening to it in a podcast app. I would say check out our YouTube channel. That's Acrewell Land Company, and you can subscribe if you like the content, but watch a couple videos and see if it's for you, because we're going to keep it coming.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Alex. It's great to meet you, and I'm looking forward to future conversations too.
Me too. Thank you, Kyle. Dionisio, thank you again. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for being on. Thanks for listening to Process Makes Purpose. We hope you gained valuable insights to transform your business journey. Stay tuned for more episodes with actionable strategies and inspiring stories by subscribing to our podcast and connecting with us on LinkedIn. See you next time.